Imagine walking into a small pharmacy in Atlanta in the year 1886. Gas lamps flicker against wooden shelves lined with glass bottles. Behind the counter, a pharmacist carefully stirs a dark syrup in a brass kettle. He calls it a nerve tonic. It promises relief from headaches, fatigue, melancholy, and even addiction. And among its ingredients is a substance that today would shock the world. Cocaine. Welcome to True History Show. This is Ashan. Yes, early Coca-Cola contained cocaine. But the real story is far more complex than a viral headline. To understand how the world's most famous soft drink once included a narcotic, we must step into the mindset of the 19th century, a time when medicine was experimental, regulation was almost non-existent, and cocaine was considered a scientific breakthrough rather than a social menace. In the mid-1800s, European chemists successfully isolated cocaine from the coca leaf, a plant that indigenous communities in South America had chewed for centuries to combat fatigue and altitude sickness. Once extracted in purified form, cocaine was hailed as a medical marvel. Doctors praised its stimulating qualities. It was used as one of the first local anesthetics in surgery. Sigmund Freud wrote enthusiastically about its psychological effects. Pharmacies stocked it openly. Cocaine was found in toothache drops, asthma remedies, and even tonic wines marketed to exhausted professionals. This was the era of patent medicines, brightly labeled bottles claiming to cure nearly everything. There were no clinical trials, no FDA approvals, no standardized dosage regulations. Substances were judged largely by immediate results, not long-term consequences. In this climate, cocaine was not viewed as dangerous. It was modern, scientific, progressive. Enter John Stith Pemberton, a Civil War veteran and pharmacist. Wounded in battle, Pemberton had become dependent on morphine, as many injured soldiers had. Seeking alternatives, he experimented with stimulants and herbal extracts. Inspired by a popular European coca wine called Vin Mariani, he created his own variation, combining coca leaf extract, alcohol, and kola nut, a caffeine-rich ingredient. He named it Pemberton's French wine coca and marketed it as a remedy for nervous disorders and exhaustion. Then, in 1886, Atlanta enacted temperance laws limiting alcohol sales. Pemberton reformulated his drink, removing the wine and replacing it with carbonated water. The result was a sweet, effervescent beverage he renamed Coca-Cola, a nod to its two main ingredients, coca leaves and kola nuts. The early syrup did contain cocaine, though in relatively small amounts. Historians estimate that a glass may have contained around 9 milligrams in the earliest versions. By the standards of the time, this was modest. It was not viewed as a recreational stimulant, but as a therapeutic additive. Coca-Cola was sold in pharmacies, not supermarkets. Customers paid 5 cents per glass and consumed it as a refreshing health tonic. But perceptions began to shift. By the late 1890s, reports of cocaine addiction were increasing. Urban newspapers sensationalized stories linking cocaine use to crime, often in racially charged narratives that fueled public fear. Medical opinion grew more cautious. What had once seemed miraculous now appeared risky. Recognizing the changing tide, Coca-Cola quietly altered its formula. In 1903, the company began removing cocaine from its syrup. The coca leaves remained for flavor, but the psychoactive alkaloid was chemically extracted before production. By 1904, Coca-Cola was effectively cocaine-free. This reform occurred before sweeping federal narcotics legislation. The Harrison Narcotics Tax Act of 1914 would later heavily regulate cocaine and opiates, but Coca-Cola had already adapted. The company's survival did not depend on narcotics. It depended on branding, marketing innovation, and expanding distribution networks. Over time, the beverage transformed from medicinal tonic to mass-market refreshment. Bottling technology allowed Coca-Cola to reach beyond soda fountains. Advertising campaigns tied the drink to youth, vitality, and American optimism. By the 20th century, its identity had nothing to do with pharmacology. Modern Coca-Cola contains no cocaine. The company does continue to use decocainized coca leaf extract processed under strict federal oversight. The cocaine alkaloid is removed entirely before the flavoring is incorporated into the syrup. The controlled substance is handled separately under pharmaceutical regulation. Why does this story continue to fascinate? Partly because it reveals how dramatically cultural perceptions of drugs can change. Substances once praised can become condemned. In the 19th century, heroin was introduced as a supposedly non-addictive cough remedy. Radium was added to cosmetics and toothpaste. Even cigarettes were once endorsed by physicians. Scientific understanding evolves. So does regulation. The Coca-Cola story is not one of secret malice or hidden conspiracy. It reflects an era when boundaries between medicine and consumer goods were fluid. Companies operated within the norms of their time. As knowledge expanded and risks became clearer, formulas changed. There is also something deeply human about this narrative. It reminds us that progress rarely unfolds in a straight line. Society experiments, sometimes unwisely. Enthusiasm precedes caution. Correction follows discovery. Looking back, the idea of a cocaine-infused soda seems absurd, but at the time, it fits seamlessly into mainstream medical culture. Importantly, Coca-Cola did not rise to global dominance because of cocaine. The ingredient was phased out long before the brand became an international icon. Its growth stemmed from business strategy, franchised bottling systems, aggressive advertising, and cultural positioning. The famous red and white script logo, the holiday campaigns, the association with Americana, these shaped its empire far more than any stimulant ever could. When modern audiences encountered the headline, "Coca-Cola once contained cocaine," the reaction is often disbelief. It challenges assumptions about corporate responsibility and product safety, yet it also underscores how regulatory systems have strengthened over time. Today, introducing a psychoactive substance into a consumer beverage would require rigorous trials and approval processes. The 19th century was a laboratory of bold experimentation. Some discoveries transformed medicine for the better. Others revealed dangers only years later. Coca-Cola's brief association with cocaine belongs to that experimental age. It lasted less than 2 decades and ended as understanding improved. History is filled with such surprising chapters. They remind us that hindsight can distort perspective. What seems reckless now may once have appeared innovative. Judging the past requires context, an awareness of scientific limitations and cultural norms of the time. Ultimately, the story of cocaine in early Coca-Cola is less about scandal and more about evolution. It marks a transition from loosely regulated tonics to modern consumer safety standards. It captures a moment when chemistry dazzled the public imagination and businesses capitalized on new discoveries. In 1886, coca leaf extract symbolized vitality. In 1903, cocaine was removed as caution grew. In 2026, Coca-Cola stands as a carbonated beverage consumed worldwide. Its once controversial ingredient long gone. The arc of this narrative reflects a broader truth about innovation. Society tests boundaries, evidence accumulates, policies adjust. What endures is not the mistake, but the lesson, and perhaps that is why the story still resonates. Beneath the fizz and sweetness lies a reminder that knowledge is always provisional. Each generation refines what it inherits. The world changes, sometimes unexpectedly, and even the most iconic brands evolve with it. If you like the video, share it, and don't forget to subscribe. True History Show. See you in the next video.